ලොවදිනු ශ්‍රී ලාංකිකයන් සොයා යන Bright TV ගමනේ අපි අද පටන් ගන්නවා අපේ පළවෙනි වැඩසටහන. අපි අද ඇවිත් ඉන්නේ ඔයගලන්ට පේනවා ඇති මේ ලස්සන පසුබිම ඇවිත් ඉන්නේ University of Leicester. නැත්නම් Leicester විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ උපකුලපති මහාචාර්ය නිශාන් කනගරාජාව හම්බ වෙන්න. Welcome all our viewers to Bright TV and to the achievers in the UK program. Come, let's go and meet one of our own Sri Lankan, Professor Nishan Canagarajah, the Vice-Chancellor of University Leicester. Take a deep breath and prepare yourselves to listen to the inspirational story of Professor Nishan Canagarajah, the Vice-Chancellor and the President of the University of Leicester. Come with me. Welcome to our show, Professor Nishan Canagarajah. I should call you by your name, Nishan. So the University of Leicester is 100 years old and you all started with only 3 staff members and 11 students. Of course, you must be having thousands of students now. How do you feel to be seated as the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Leicester?
I'm incredibly proud to be the Vice-Chancellor of University of Leicester. This is a unique university. This university was established in 1921 as a living memorial after the First World War. So the local community came together and wanted to establish a university as a memorial rather than a statue. They wanted to give people hope. So the local people gave the land, the money, and they started the university. And as you say, today we have 20,000 students, nearly 4,000 staff. So in 100 years, that is a remarkable success story.
Yeah, you must be proud.
I'm very proud and I'm very grateful, not just me, all the Vice-Chancellors before me. I'm the 7th Vice-Chancellor of University of Leicester. And obviously the others also played an important role to make this a successful university.
Definitely, yes. So I would like to take your memory back to 2019 when you were appointed as the Vice-Chancellor. So little beyond that, to the interview panel, can you roughly remember how many candidates would have been there with you?
I don't exactly know how many candidates, but normally, for a role like that, it will not be surprising to say there will be a lot of interest because it's a fantastic opportunity and a fulfilling role. So I would have imagined there would have a lot of people who would have applied and then they would have shortlisted, and I never asked them how many people, but my guess is it will be about 3 or 4. And then, yes, we had an interview process. And I came here in August for the interview. I'm very pleased to find out I got the job.
Yeah. So what was your selling point? How did you make the interview panel confident about yourself? Or rather, how did you make the interview panel to decide that you are the right candidate for this position?
It is a question for the interview panel, not me, but I will try and answer from my perspective what I tried to do. So clearly, before every interview, I do some research. I look at the university and what are the great things that happen in this university that I need to preserve. Then I also look at what are the things that we need to change to make it better. So I did the research, so I was able to give some ideas on what I think the university should do going forward. I was able to talk about my leadership experience in my previous roles and what I managed to achieve to give an indication of my track record. And I think more importantly, I think you want to be authentic. You want to be yourself because ultimately when you get the job, that's what you're going to be. So there's no point in pretending what you're not. So I felt it was important for them to see who the me is. And I was very open with my ideas and I was very open to kind of tell them where things need to change and improve. And I was pleased to get the job.
And you got the job.
I did.
So after taking over your Vice-Chancellor's role, you had three main goals or objectives. One is to give the focus and the confidence to the staff. And the second would be to give a clear focus and mission to the university. And third would be to blend the university with the society. So after couple of years or like 4 or 5 years down the line, do you believe that you have achieved all your goals?
I certainly made a massive impact, I would say, and I'm very grateful for my team. It's something I can't achieve on my own. I need other people to contribute as well. And I would say, in fact, last Monday was my 50th year anniversary. I started on the 4th of November. So last Monday was my 5th anniversary. And I would say in the 5 years, we definitely have made progress on all fronts.
Okay.
So we have a much better engagement with staff and students. So recently we did a staff survey where staff are expressing their opinion of how well things are going. And I was delighted. We had a very high response rate, and nearly 75% felt the university is being well run.
Okay.
And I thought that was a really good indication. Similarly, in terms of the mission, I've been very clear from the day I arrived that one of the strengths of University of Leicester, it is in Leicester, which is one of the most diverse cities in the UK. And it's called the super diverse city, where we have lots of different ethnicities, different social groups in one city. That gives us a lot of advantage to be a truly inclusive university. And I felt that that is an opportunity we should capitalize on, build on the work in our research. So for example, we have research activities like Center for Ethnic Health Research, looking at how different health conditions affect different ethnic communities. Similarly, in archaeology, how do we make archaeology more inclusive? We have museum studies, looking at how do we make sure the museums are more representative of the wider society. So I was able to kind of see how we can build on that diversity in our research. Similarly, in education, we've been able to bring changes to the curriculum content, the way we work with our students. So I feel that there has been a lot of progress we have made.
Great.
But that doesn't say there's more to do. But I feel in the last 5 years, we have made a lot of progress. And the final thing you mentioned is about community engagement. And I'm very clear that in this university, and I think it's true for every university, you have to make a tangible difference to the local community.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you might as well be in another city. So I was very keen that we work with our local partners. So, for example, business partners, education partners, voluntary sector, the local government, because we are a big university, a big organization. So we can really make a contribution. And again, I feel that we have made a lot of progress. So just to give you one example, when I started in this university, the local mayor, city mayor, was saying this university is not engaging with the city at all. And is kind of sitting on the hill, completely divorced from the rest of the city. And I was very concerned, and that's not something that I was keen to continue. But recently, he's been telling everybody how Leicester University is now very much embedded in the city, is making a difference. And I'm very proud of that. So I just feel that in the 3 objectives that I set, we have made a significant progress.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So how do you engage or cooperate with the other universities in Leicester?
So we have a number of mechanisms. So I also have a role to play nationally because I sit on the UUK board. That is the board that represents all the universities in the UK. So that gives me an opportunity to work with other universities as well. But at the local level, we have signed a partnership between the 3 universities that we will work together. So that is De Montfort University and Loughborough University. Because there are lots of things that we do, instead of us doing it separately, by joining together, we can achieve more.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to give you one example, when we want to attract more students from disadvantaged backgrounds, or we want to attract more women into science and engineering, the universities will spend a lot of time going to visit local schools. And then it's not a good idea for one school to one day get a representative from University of Leicester, that next day they get somebody from De Montfort University, next day they get from Loughborough University. And also by pooling the resources, we can achieve a lot more for that school. So we have signed a partnership called Civic Universities Partnership, where the 3 universities work together with the local government, the county council, and so on. So where we can really make a difference. And another example I can give you is that the 3 universities have signed an agreement that as much as possible, we will procure goods and services from the local community. So it drives growth in the local economy.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So you touched based on diversity, and I happen to read that diversity is one of your attractions towards Leicester. So have you come across any challenges or difficulties in managing this highly diverse community?
So I passionately feel about, given that my background coming from Sri Lanka, and I was a in organizations worked, I was in the minority, I was not in the majority. So to get to this level, I had a different experience. So I wanted to make sure that in my role, I make a difference so people in this role in the future are able to kind of understand how they can fulfill their potential and be successful. So when I came here, I wanted to make sure that the university is truly diverse in terms of the representation, the staff body, student body. It supported the students with their diverse needs and staff and so on. And we have made a lot of progress. So for example, we are now have more diverse staff in our staff body. We have more diversity in our student body. And that's sort of very encouraging. But at the same time, when you're running an organization with 4,000 staff, change doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And so culture just doesn't change overnight. So you can clearly set the strategy and the vision, but then you need to be patient to see how the progress. So you need to make sure your leadership team understands. And I feel the leadership team now understands what the drivers are, what the mission is. And now we need to embed that in every level of the organization. And I feel that we have made a lot of progress. But at the same time, I know a culture change will take some time. But I think overall, if you walk around the university or if you talk to people in the city or even around the world, people will acknowledge the University of Leicester is much more diverse and really addressing some of the issues that we need to as a society.
That's great. And would you like to touch base about DNA 35 or University Strategy, one of your successful projects, or any other projects which you have come across successfully during the recent past?
Yeah, so it was DNA 35 was before me. It was in 1989, I think, or 84. It was discovered by one of the professors, Professor Sir Alex Jeffries. He came up with DNA fingerprinting, and now it's used all over the world. So everybody who's using DNA fingerprinting should be grateful to University of Leicester. But since then, there have been lots of other great discoveries more recently. So our colleagues in health, in cardiovascular, diabetes are making great progress on new treatments. And then our respiratory department, our researchers are solving problems around COVID, long COVID. So we are always pushing the boundaries in terms of what new solutions we can come up with. And similarly, you know about in our space, we have a successful track record. So just to give you one example, since 1967, every space mission at University of Leicester involved. And the recent space mission to Jupiter is called JUICE, and one of my Professor Emma Bunce, is the lead for one of the work programs.
Wow.
So the University of Leicester is continuing to be involved in international projects, and similarly in archaeology and museum studies, we are leading major programs internationally. So just last week, I was in Toronto, Canada, and there is a museum called Aga Khan Museum, and they work with University of Leicester to see how they design that museum. How do we make sure that that museum takes advantage of digital technologies, but also represents different communities?
Okay. So what is University of Leicester is best known for? Is it for medicine or for engineering, or what is the best subject?
So the three areas that University of Leicester known worldwide is healthcare, medicine. So our medical program is one of the top in the country. The research we do is very successful in medicine. The other one is space, because of the involvement we have in space. Again, we work with NASA, we work with the European space agencies, we are involved in all the space mission, and recently the government gave us 100 million to set up something known as a space park. The space park is allow the university to work with the local industry or international industry, and they are co-located, and they're working in partnership. Again, coming up with new instruments for next space missions. So space is the second area that Leicester is well known for. And the third is heritage and museum studies. Again, we have a very good department in archaeology, museum studies, and they are pushing the boundaries on heritage sector. So these are the three, I would say, currently we're internationally known for.
Okay, good. So now you are heading thousands of students, but one time you were a student. And I know for the fact both of your parents were teachers, and you have been telling, though they were teachers, they never influenced you to do what they wanted, but they facilitated you to do what you wanted. So, but both of us are well aware that most of the parents in Asian continental countries, if we take our country as an example, in Sri Lanka, the parents would sell their properties to send their children out to get their higher education in countries like UK. As a Vice-Chancellor, And as a parent, what is your view on parents sending their children out of Sri Lanka for their higher education?
It's a good question, and as you said, I was very lucky. I had parents who were quite open-minded, and as a student, it was many years ago, I was here as an undergraduate. So my case is not typical because my parents are from middle class, low middle class, didn't have much money. But I was very lucky. I got a scholarship to come to Cambridge to do my undergraduate. Otherwise, I would have never come. I never thought I'll be coming to England to do my undergraduate. So I was very grateful that I got the scholarship. But once I've been here, I realized how important the education in a foreign country is, and particularly a country like UK. It opens your mind to new possibilities. It gives you new people to meet and new opportunities. So I think it's certainly a very good investment. If as a parent, if I can, I would do it, because I think it allows our children to think big and explore new opportunities. And I think from Sri Lanka, students who are coming here are doing really well. Either they are doing well here or anywhere else in the world or back in Sri Lanka. So I think it's well worth an investment. But I know how expensive it can be. So I hope that people who get the opportunity make the full use of it.
Yes. So what is the main difference you see in Sri Lankan university education compared to that of the UK university education?
It's very difficult to say because I've never worked in a Sri Lankan university, so it's very not right for me to comment. But I only hear from the people I speak. But what I can say is that, just to give you one example, one of the reasons I didn't go back to Sri Lanka after finishing my PhD and decided to stay here and get this job, because I enjoy doing research to solve problems and work in a university where research is supported. And that is much harder in Sri Lanka. So you can't do, although I'm really pleased that things are improving. For example, I'm now working with some of the Sri Lankan universities to support their research and develop research programs, because I think it'll be good if they do, then they can attract more people to stay in Sri Lanka or come back and work there. So that is one difference, I would say. And the other difference, I think, that something I noticed when I came here. So when I came here from Sri Lanka, I struggled in my first year. Because in Sri Lankan education system, we have a very good system, but very often it's about repetition rather than thinking outside about the subject, asking questions. So even when we are growing up, you're not encouraged to ask questions, you are simply accept what's told. Whereas if you ask questions, people say, oh no, you can't ask questions. Whereas if you want to really progress, you need to ask questions. You need to think about it differently. And that's what we encourage in the UK. In the UK system, the students are encouraged to think, encouraged to question, encouraged to challenge. So then everybody learns, because even as a lecturer, I can learn new things. And when a student asks questions, I think, oh, maybe there's a different way of looking at this. So I think that's another issue, I would say. I think the other problem I would say is that in Sri Lanka is once you finish your degree, what do you go on and do? The employment opportunities. So I think the government needs to think about how do we create a system so we can retain the best people to stay in Sri Lanka and contribute to the economy. So I think that needs universities working with the government and identifying how we can create those opportunities.
Yes. If I could ask you how good your network with the Vice-Chancellors in Sri Lankan universities or with the academic staff in Sri Lankan universities, have you been ever asked to share your experience or to share your learnings and develop the university education system in Sri Lanka?
That's a great question, because I always feel that is something I can offer, and I would be delighted to do that. And I've been so far only asked by 2 universities, one in Jaffna and the other one in Vavnia, to come and help them, and I have. And that's what I mentioned about how I'm trying to help them with my experience and the know-how about creating a research institute. So we have now launched a research institute in Jaffna, and they are working with researchers in the UK. Recently, they got a multi-million-pound research grant to work between UK universities and these universities in Sri Lanka. And I think it's worth the Sri Lankan universities think, not just me, but if there are other people in a similar position in America, Australia, Canada, to tap into that expertise and know-how. Even if they don't accept it, it's worth the hearing from the experience. So it's interesting. I've never had an invitation from anybody other than these 2 universities.
I hope once this goes on air, you will get a lot of invitations.
Delighted to. If that happened, I would be very happy to go down and talk. In fact, I was in Sri Lanka in June this year because my old school where I studied, for their prize giving, they invited me to be the chief guest, and I'm always happy to go and support everybody in Sri Lanka because I feel that is something I can offer to the Sri Lankan community.
So you are still a Sri Lankan at your heart?
Very much so. Very much so.
Okay. You happen to mention that if it was not for the scholarship that you got from the University of Cambridge, you would never have come to the UK. So how often does University of Leicester offer scholarships for the international students? And what are the criteria for an international student to obtain a scholarship?
So that is one of the difficult things for universities, and I find that very difficult in my job as a Vice-Chancellor, because having got the scholarship, I would like to offer a lot more if I can. But obviously you have to only operate with the finances you have. So in Leicester we have a number of scholarships for international students, and they have to have a very good academic record. But one of the things that we ask for the application is, what is the thing that you want to change about the world? So we say, what change do you want to see happen in the world? And we get some fantastic ideas. And we then judge on that basis who should get the scholarship.
Okay.
And that works. And the other thing that we do is in Leicester, we have something known as a sanctuary unit. It is the first one to be established in the UK, and that helps refugees around the world.
Okay.
So now we have distance learning program. We are offering that free for people around the world who are refugees. So that is how we are using the education to reach out to other people who can't access without funding.
Funding, okay. So I'm an international student, so I know for the fact there had been a lot of changes with respect to the immigration rules and regulation which applies for an international student. So given the latest circumstances and the challenges that an international student has to go through, would you still recommend UK for an international student to come and do their higher education over other popular destinations like New Zealand, Australia or Canada?
I certainly would. I think the international students are very welcome in the UK, and they have a great experience and they are well supported. Unfortunately, when you read the media, sometimes it doesn't project that view. But I can tell from the students I speak to, they all feel well supported and enjoying their studies here. And I think, unfortunately, in the recent government discussions, there was a feeling that international students are not welcome. But I think that has changed recently. And I also think during election times, people may say different things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what they believe in. And also, I think it is a global issue. So if you take Canada, if you take Australia, it's happening there as well. So I don't think it's a phenomenon just for the UK. But having said that, I would certainly say to any Sri Lankan students wanting to come and study abroad, please do it. You will be welcome. And there will be stories in the media, but most of the time it would not have an impact on you.
Okay. So do you have any experience where an international student reached you personally asking for support?
Yes, I have. Very often it's about funding.
Okay.
So very often the students come here thinking they can support their studies, and then there are changes in their family circumstances, or the exchange rate has changed, or changes in the government, the way they can transfer money abroad. In those cases, the students contact us and we try to support them.
Have you been able to provide the support?
Yes, we have. So for example, in some cases, we told them they don't have to pay the fees immediately. We give them extended time. In some and within the university, we have hardship funds. So the students can apply to the hardship funds, and that will pay for their living cost and so on. So there are, and in fact, in this university, after COVID, there were a lot of students finding difficult with cost of living increase. We provide free breakfast for students.
Wow.
So we have about 200 students every morning get free breakfast.
Wow, that's a great support, I would say. So for an international student, it's a huge investment to get a degree from UK. So do you honestly believe that the international students are getting the return on investment once they're done with their degree?
I certainly think so. clearly it depends on what subject you want to do and what you want to achieve. I personally think getting a education from an overseas university gives you something more compared to somebody who doesn't have that experience. But at the same time, we shouldn't assume that everybody will. It depends on what kind of disciplines you want to go into. But I think it is right to ask the question whether you will get good jobs and whether it's a good return on investment. But I see education slightly differently. Are you going to be a different person because of that education? You certainly will be. Are you a better global citizen because of your global education? You will be. Is it worth an investment on that front? Absolutely. So that's how I would view the opportunities of education rather than purely in terms of job prospects.
That's a good insight. So, graduate scheme, or previously known as the post-study work visa, is one of the hot topics during the recent general election. So some were towards that and some were against that. So what is your viewpoint of graduate visa scheme, and do you believe that it should be continuing, and do you think that it gives a value addition to the students who want to work after their studies?
Absolutely. I strongly support the post-study visa scheme because as you asked earlier, what about the job prospects and return on investment? That is one example of the return on investment, where once you get your degree in a UK institution, you get the opportunity to work and get a working experience. That is also a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And then depending on what you want to do afterwards, whether you want to stay in the UK or go back or work somewhere else, that experience of working in a UK industrial business context is invaluable. So I think it should continue, and I'm really pleased it is continuing. And I think it is something that the students benefit hugely.
Okay. So as the University of Leicester, how do you support the students to find better opportunity during their graduate visa or the post-study work visa?
So we have the Careers Centre, and during that time we do two things. Some of our students get internships while they are studying, so that is useful experience as part of their degree. Sometimes those internships lead to job offers at the end of the graduation. And similarly, we have the Careers Hub regularly get information about vacancies from different companies, and they share that with the students. So that's how we kind of support the students. And the feedback I get is it's working well.
Okay, that's great. So what would be the best advice you could give to any of the international students who would like to settle in the UK post-studies?
So it depends on what job you want to do and what you want to achieve in life. And clearly, if you get an opportunity to stay here and work and contribute, absolutely, that is a good thing. But equally, if there are things that you want to do back in Sri Lanka, the experience you get from England, the working experience will be invaluable, and you can share that with other people in Sri Lanka as well. So it depends on personal circumstances, but I would certainly encourage them to work for 1 or 2 years to get some experience.
That adds value for them.
It certainly does add value. And new networks. Networks are very important as well.
Yes, in fact. So coming from Sri Lanka as a student, having language barriers and then having to absorb the cultural shock, how would you describe your transformational journey, and what were the key learnings you got during that process?
It was tough coming here as a student because I studied in Tamil. I didn't study in English, and when I came to Cambridge I have to study everything in English, and I found some of the lectures very difficult, didn't understand the accent, didn't understand the technical terms, so first year was tough. But I had good friends, so that helped. So I benefited from good friends that I made at the university. And I think the other thing that I was determined, and it was pressure as well, because I got the scholarship, there was an expectation I'm going to perform better than everybody else. So it puts additional pressure on you. So that was something that I had to deal with as well. But equally, I'm a person who believes I can only do my best. And I can only fulfill my talents in terms of what I have got. So I did the best I could and worked hard. I had to work very hard. Because of the situation in Sri Lanka, I couldn't go back during the summer holidays. So I did some odd jobs, did some studies, and did the best I could to get a good degree. So I would say anybody who is coming to England to study, yes, you will be expected to work hard, but there's good support available to make sure you work well. So in that sense, I think it can be challenging, but it can be rewarding.
Okay. So what were your main strengths during this transformational process?
So I would say I'm a very determined person. I like to do well, the best I can. And the other thing is I throw myself into everything. One of the reasons I got the scholarship is when I was at school, I did not just well academically, but I was into sports, I was into music, I was into voluntary work. So I did everything. So I had a rounded experience. So when I came here, that helped me to settle down. So even at Cambridge, the reason I made a lot of friends is I was playing sports. So that allowed me to make new friendships. So those are useful things to do. So I was very keen to throw myself into everything. And the third thing, I was very willing to learn. There are lots of things you need to learn. You don't know everything. So just be open-minded and learn from other people, learn from different cultures. So very often when people ask me about how do I compare Sri Lanka and the UK, which one is better, I say it's not about which one is better. You retain the good aspects of both. That's what you need to do. Exactly. So, for example, in Sri Lanka, we have very strong family ties. We look after each other. That's something to hold on to. But here, it's about progressing, doing things well, and pushing the boundaries. That's good. So I don't think it's one is better than the other. It's about retaining the good aspects of each culture. So for me, that was the key thing, being open-minded and retaining my Sri Lankan values where it made sense and retaining the UK practices where it made sense.
Okay, great. So what was the worst experience you had during your transformational process and how did you overcome that?
Wow, that's a difficult question. What is the worst thing I've experienced?
As a young adult, as a student?
So it's not the worst, but I guess this was the difficult one. I think when you're abroad, it can be a lonely experience. Especially when you come from Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Although I had some Sri Lankan friends, culturally, it's a different culture. So again, I benefited from my friends. So for example, one example, it's a crude example, but when I came here, my English friend Stephen Palmer, who was my lab mate, I would put my arms around him because in Sri Lanka we put arms around each other. He said, "No, you can't do that here." So you learn. It's not worse, but these are the things that you learn and adapt. So I think the biggest thing for me, the difficult bit for me was once I completed my PhD, I had to decide, what do I do next? Do I go back to Sri Lanka or do I stay here and work? And clearly I felt I want to go back and help Sri Lanka if I can. But given the situation and also the fact that I want to do research, I decided to stay here. So that was always kind of feel that a difficult choice I had to make. And this is the choice I made.
Okay. Do you regret?
No, definitely not. I think I wouldn't have achieved all the things that I've achieved if I had gone back to Sri Lanka, unfortunately.
Do you miss Sri Lanka?
I do. I do. I think, again, there are lots of nice things. So that's why we go regularly. We go to, and our children come with us whenever we go to Sri Lanka. We go there every 2-3 years because I want them to understand their roots and have strong connection, and they do. And also there are lots of, it's a great country. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
This time when we were in Sri Lanka, we visited things that I didn't see before. So we were in Pasikuda, we were in Ella. So these are places I never had the chance to visit. I visited this time and a great time.
Yeah, it's great. So obviously, as a young student and a young adult on your own, earning by yourself, you would have been highly energetic. So at the same time, you would have done some mistakes. And you would have learned from that mistakes as well. So can you tell about, not that I want you to talk about the mistakes, but would you give an advice for our viewers not to make the same mistake as you have done as a student or at your life in UK?
I'm not sure what mistake. But one thing I talk about is I would like to do differently if I can, is when I was starting my academic career, I didn't do a huge amount of networking.
Okay.
I was saying, I just need to do my work well. I just focus on that. But then later on, I realized that would have been quite helpful if I had lots of networks, people I know I can approach. So I would certainly encourage people to think slightly bigger. Whereas I was thinking my job is to do my job well. And I did that well. But I think looking back, I could have done more networking earlier on in my life. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, you would advise people to do a lot of networking and
Definitely.
get to know a lot of people.
Yeah.
That would help.
It certainly would help.
Yeah, okay. Universe Next Door is one of your favorite books, which talks about different philosophies and religion. Am I correct? So what is your philosophy of life?
It's a difficult question. So the reason I read that book, or I talk about that book, is that I was a very strong Christian when I was in Sri Lanka. And when I came to England also, I was a strong Christian. Then I read this book, which was about everybody has a different worldview. So every religion has a different worldview. So to understand people, you need to understand their worldview. So that's why I like about that book. So at the moment, it's a good question. I don't know what do I believe in. So I sometimes think I'm a humanist. I believe in humans. And I believe all I can do is to do the best I can for the people I can touch, in the people I see. That's what I believe in now.
That's great. Okay. So you do still conduct lectures for students?
I did until recently. I do 1 or 2 lectures when I can, but it's very difficult with my current role.
Okay.
But having said that, I was teaching until about a year ago.
Okay, so it's never an easy task to be the Vice-Chancellor of one of the leading universities in the UK. So I know you love a lot of sports and you do watch them in the TV, or you do go to the grounds and you do go to the gym to keep yourself fit. Apart from those, how do you manage stress level?
I'm just interested to know how you know so much about me like that. I'm worried, where is the information coming from? But they are all true. They're all true. So yeah, I like sports. As I said, since a young age, I was always passionate about sports. I love the excitement of competing. And when you win, it's a great feeling. When you lose, it's not so great feeling. But at the same time, that's life. So it teaches you skills about how do you deal with wins and failures, and I think that's one of the things that you learn, and you make friends. You have to work as a team. So that's one of the reasons I liked a lot of sports, and I still do, because I like to keep myself fit and healthy. So another reason I do it. So yeah, I go and watch a lot of sports. I enjoy entertaining. So I tend to invite friends and family often to come and spend time talking, music, eating.
You love cooking as well.
I do love cooking as well. Do less of it now, but I do enjoy cooking. It's relaxing. Again, when you're cooking, you have to switch off. So it's a good way of relaxing. And the same with sports. When you're watching sports, you switch off. So for me, the way to relieve stress is to make sure you do things that allows you to switch off from what you normally think about. And the job I do, it's all about thinking, coming up with solutions and ideas. So if you don't have something to distract you, you can spend all your time just working, and that's not healthy. So that's why I try to find these activities that allows me to switch off.
So I know for the fact your childhood dream was always to become a professor. Now you are a professor and you are a Vice-Chancellor of one of the leading universities in the UK. So I would say that you have achieved the peak point in your life. So where would you like to see yourself after 5 years of time?
I don't know. I don't think that long ahead. People often ask me whether I always wanted to be a Vice-Chancellor. No. I always believed in doing well in my job, and the next job will take care of itself. So I kind of focused on that. But obviously you need to keep an open mind to different possibilities. So you develop those skills, acquire those skills to put yourself in a better position. So when I was young, growing up, because my parents were teachers, I did maths and I wanted to go to Sri Lankan University to do engineering. And then I didn't know where I will end up, whether I will work as an engineer or something. And I was selected to go to Peradeniya University. And the reason I didn't go is because I got the scholarship to go to Cambridge. And then when I came here and did my PhD, then I felt I want to be in a university system and become a professor. So in fact, I'll give you a good example of how I ended up. So I was very happy being a professor, and I thought, that's the pinnacle of my career, I've achieved that. And then when I was in Bristol, where I was there for 25 years, one day in the Christmas party, after the party is over, one of the professors said, Nishan, as the Dean of Engineering, contacted you about a leadership role. I thought, me? Leadership role? Although I knew that I can do a leadership role, because I've done that at school in Sri Lanka. I didn't realize that other people in the UK, in Bristol in particular, noticed that I can do it because I was the only non-white person in the department. So when I was asked, I said, yeah, let me give it a go. And I did it. I did that well. And then after that, they asked me to take on bigger jobs. I became the Dean of Engineering, and then I became the Pro Vice-Chancellor for Research at Bristol. So all those opportunities came, and I just grasped it, did it well. And when this opportunity came up, again, I thought, yeah, I've done the Pro Vice-Chancellor. I'd like to see what I can do as a Vice-Chancellor. So you're right. I feel that I've achieved more than what I set out to do. I never thought I would be a Vice-Chancellor on a prestigious university like Leicester, and I feel very proud. In terms of what happens next, it'll be difficult to say, but I will be happy to explore a role where I can work with the government to influence policy, or I can carry on being a Vice-Chancellor and do different things.
Great. So have you ever had some sort of negative thoughts or nervousness because you're being an Asian, or because of your skin color, or because you're from a minority? Have you ever had that thought?
So I never had there were always things that happened that wouldn't have happened if I was not Asian, if I was not brown. But at the same time, I didn't let that worry me. I just felt I need to carry on doing what I need to do. So as I mentioned, in many of the jobs when I was the first non-white person to have that role. And there are two sides to it. One is, yes, I kind of did everything to overcome that, to kind of push myself forward. But also, I don't think we should lose sight of the fact there are other people who were willing to give me a chance when they saw I could do it. So that's the two sides. But definitely, I hear lots of stories from staff and students where they feel sometimes the opportunities are not given or denied because of who they are. And that's not right. So that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. So I would say that exists. Did it affect me? I don't know, because it's not something that I've seen, because I always kind of fight against it and make sure that I push myself forward to get the roles. And when I got the roles, were there difficulties? Yeah, there are. Sometimes people might have done things if it was somebody else. But fortunately, I believe in the power of persuasion and argument and reason. That's what I rely on.
That's great. Finally, for all our viewers who are watching us through the Bright TV, what would be the inspirational message that you could give to the young generation back in Sri Lanka?
I think the only message I have for everybody is retain your humanity. It's important. There will be lots of opportunities where you can make a difference to somebody else. So that's one thing I would say, always retain your humanity. And the second thing is just explore all the opportunities. You never know what you're going to be good at. You don't have to fit into a narrow definition of what good looks like. Whatever works. So throw yourself into whatever that you're passionate about, keen to develop, and see where it takes you. So those are the two things. Explore opportunities and retain your humanity.
Thank you so much, Professor Nishan. Actually, it was a pleasure to talking you and sharing your wonderful journey. It was a lot of insights that you shared. I'm sure the Bright TV viewers will be benefited. And thank you again. And on behalf of the Bright TV, we would like to wish you health, wealth, and happiness in everything that you do.
Thank you very much, Emali. It was very pleasure talking to you. And I hope those who are watching get some benefit from this interview.
Yeah.